And one thing I try to tell our interns, 'cause I'm currently running our internship program, is invest in people. Books are great. Courses are awesome. That you're going to get a head start. You're going to get a good foundation. In the last 3 years, I feel like I have grown most as a coach because I've invested in people to mentor me and help me along the way. And whether that's doing site visits, that's doing online cohorts, that's doing phone calls, it's been the best, right? It saved me years of time versus, I probably could have learned it in a book, but how many books have you read? And afterwards, you've got 17 questions on a topic and you're like, well, who do I ask this to? Having a mentor now allows you to then ask those questions as you're going through. So I'm a big believer in like finding people that either are doing what you believe in or have a point of view that's the same as you, and trying to reach out to them. Do they do consult calls? Do they do site visits? Do they offer anything that can help you get in? Go intern for them. If you have a summer free, go intern. That's the best way to learn, because now you're going to be hands-on in the mix, learning and doing at the same time.
What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have Senior Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach at Pitt, Devin Young. Devin, thank you so much for coming on, man.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad you grabbed me at CSCCA and asked me if I'd want to be on and all. It's fun, but it's also always weird when I'm on the other side of a podcast not hosting it. So I'll try my best not to take over and start asking you a bunch of questions.
Yeah. You know what, honestly, since I've started hosting the podcast and I've been a guest on other podcasts, it's like almost like this sense of relief a little bit. I don't know if you feel the same, because you kind of just get to answer the questions, where you don't have to drive it as much or drive the conversation, even though every conversation I have is awesome and I love it, it's nice to kind of be on the other side a little bit. So I appreciate you letting me ask the questions this time.
No, yeah, and it's also cool to see how other people like host their stuff, and I'm always interested on who's doing it better, who's got better ideas or questions, or at least keeps the conversation going more free flow, because I hate the ask a question, answer the question, ask a question. I'm like, no, let's just talk.
Exactly. And that's the vibe we're going for. So I hope I can live up to that for you. So I'm excited. But yes, I'm certainly glad I pulled you aside at CSCCA too. We first actually got introduced via a former podcast guest, Nico Scheringer.
Yep.
I know he worked with you over at Pitt, and then that's what allowed me to kind of get introduced to your social media. And so then I saw you at CSCCA and I was like, we've got to get you on. So look, this has finally come to fruition about 2 months later at this point.
That's wild. It's been that long since CSC.
Yeah.
I feel like we just got back from Texas, and I'm thinking summer's still ahead of us, and it's almost over.
Oh my goodness, it's already over for me. We got all our teams back on campus, full swing going. So, but it's good. It's good. That's what we came here to do. But okay, can you just take me through your background? Kind of just give me an introduction to yourself, and then what you're currently doing at Pitt.
All right, so I guess we talked about this earlier offline. I sometimes think I'm just a guy, but got into strength and conditioning almost a decade ago. Went to Pittsburgh State University, tried to walk onto their NCAA D3 hockey team there. Hockey was my entire life and existence from kindergarten through juniors. I did the junior route. If you guys don't know anything about hockey, there's basically once you turn 15, you can start playing juniors, and you can play that to your 21 depending on when your birth year falls. And for the most of the time for NCAA, we'll see how this new 5-for-5 changes college hockey. Most of the time you come in as a freshman at 21. You're able to play juniors, develop stronger, more IQ on the ice, whatever that might be. So did that whole route, tried to get to play NCAA D3. If you don't know hockey, again, there's either Division I, your Wisconsin, your Minnesotas, or then you have NCAA D3, and then you have club hockey. So really not a lot of opportunity if you do want to play. And my thing was always trying to play at the highest level I could. I learned early on I'd never play at Vermont, which was my dream school, but we tried for the next best thing. Got there, didn't end up making the team, and kind of just went through the motions for a couple of years, dove into the exercise science rabbit hole, and fell in love with it. I had a buddy of mine, he was 2 years older than me, interned with Devin McConnelly at UMass Lowell, and loved the experience, raved about it, reached out to him. Yeah, whenever you get ready for your internship, let me know. We'll bring you on board. And just happened to be working at a vitamin shop, and Keith Vincey came through one day with the UMass Lowell sports performance shirt on. said, what's up? I've talked to Devin. I want to intern. He gave me his business card. And the next semester I was up there interning. That's kind of really where I got my first start. And I couldn't have asked for a better place to be. Keith, rest in peace, man. Like, was a great boss, a great mentor. It's kind of crazy. Every part along my career, he's always kind of been like backseat driving it a little bit, even though I didn't know about it. But they helped me out. AJ Whitehead, who's women's basketball at Wisconsin, was there at the time. Rick Malumdrum, who I think is now opened a private facility somewhere. He's bounced around college a little bit, took a step away, come back. But yeah, they put me under their wings, helped me get my CSCCA, CSCS, all that stuff, and then bounced around a bunch of other internships, Eastern Michigan, Princeton. Did my GA up here at St. Francis, which is about like an hour and a half east of Pittsburgh, and then did another internship at James Madison University. And after that summer internship, landed my first full-time job at North Carolina A&T. So it's been a roller coaster, as all strength coaches, like all over the place. At the time when I started this profession, also met my girlfriend, now wife. So the whole goal was trying to get closer to be around her versus just kind of floating all over the country. Was down at North Carolina A&T for 4 years, was the director during COVID, was one of the worst experiences I've ever been a part of in my career, of trying to lead a department with only 10 people in a room and heat checks and all the stuff we had to go through back then. Left there. Moved in with my wife. She was working at James Madison University. Ended up at Bridgewater College as an assistant director for 3 months and then a director for a year. And actually was not supposed to, that sounds weird. Was very close with Christian Carter at James Madison University. His baseball softball job opened up. He asked me to interview, went through the whole process, was a finalist. They ended up going with someone else who, oddly enough, me and him GA'd together at St. Francis. So there's a big connection there. And then Pitt happened to have a job open. And I always loved what Coach Mock and Aaron posted about from their time at Mississippi State. Very forward thinking, very growth mindset. And I was like, God, everything's up to date. My resume looks amazing. The cover letter, I just need to change the school name. It's perfect. Send it in and I'll never hear from them. And about like a month and a half later, I get a random call walking my dog from a Louisiana number, and it was Aaron Duvall. And got here almost 4 years ago now. I think I'm going on my 4th or 5th year. God, time flies. I really can't remember. And have been here ever since. Oversee track and field, softball, host the Talking Pitt podcast here. I've had a role in the past of really doing a lot with our social media here. That role has kind of changed a little bit based on moving pieces around. But honestly, man, I'm loving Pittsburgh. Me and my wife love it here, man. I will die on the hill saying we have one of the best staffs, in the country. And I absolutely just love it here.
That's awesome, man. And I love to hear about your experiences. I'm definitely, unfortunately, going to bring back the traumatizing COVID experience in a little bit.
Yeah,
but
please do. Yeah.
My apologies. But I'm curious at first, like, you said after going to college, you kind of dove into the exercise science full swing, and that's where you really fell in love with it. When you were coming up through juniors, when you were a hockey player, were you lifting a bunch, or was it, kind of just hockey's the main focus and lifting was kind of an added bonus?
So during my time, like stretching hockey, like your normal stretching was you got on the ice and you did like a 6-point stretch. You put your leg on the bench, hit your hamstring for a couple seconds. The weight room was here and miss. I mean, I was your typical 14, 15-year-old in high school, would hang out with my buddies at Planet Fitness, and we'd 1 rep max bench, 1 rep max leg press, and throw some curls in and call it a day. It wasn't until my last year of juniors, I ended up training at a private place called MVP Sports Training or MVP Sports Center. I don't remember the name. And it was the first time I was exposed to like, wait, you get paid to train people? So like that thought was in the back of my mind of like, okay, this seems like a cool job. But again, my whole thing for going to college was to play hockey, and I would get a degree in something and then figure my life out. Whenever that time ended, there was maybe some crazy thoughts of going overseas and playing. There's a cool Irish league that I've always like, dude, that'd be dope to live in Ireland and play hockey and whatever. But again, just didn't have the skill to make the NCAA team. And then from making that, trying to go play professional, even anywhere in the world, is just slim to none. But yeah, it just kind of fell in the back of my mind. It seemed like something I was interested in. And again, was one of the best decisions I think I've ever made in my life.
Well, I'm stoked to hear that it worked out for you, obviously. I love that you bring up Ireland. My dad and I went on a week-long trip to Ireland. Absolutely loved it. Had a fantastic time. And so much so that when I came back and I saw my wife, I was like, look, if anybody actually lifted over in Ireland, we'd move there today and we'd start up a training facility. But, obviously in America, there's just a much different lifting culture. There's a much different training culture. And I remember going over to Ireland and like people were looking at me because I'm, 6 feet tall, 270. And people were like, who the hell is this guy? And so I remember I saw one gym while I was over there. And it was a half jujitsu, half powerlifting gym with 2 racks. And that was like the main area that I saw. And I was like, all right, if I come over here and I try to start a strength and conditioning facility in Kilkenny, I think I'm going to have a little bit of troubles.
Yeah, one of our interns actually this year is from Ireland.
Really?
So she's been amazed at like the differences, how they train within. I think she plays hurling, so she's got her foot in the hurling door and a little bit in rugby, I think, over there. But again, it's just so cool for her to just talk about Ireland and that whole area. And I think I'm the same way. Like if I could open a space and actually make a living, I would probably be like, "Hey, Alyssa, you want to go move to Ireland?" And she'd probably actually be down.
Yeah, would it be fantastic? Have you watched hurling? Have you ever seen it live?
So after she explained it to me, me and Taylor Gossman got on our phones on YouTube, and I just started pulling up hurling videos. So we've been addicted to it. And she actually found a Gaelic club over here. So she plays. They practice 2 or 3 times a week, and then she go plays. So we're trying to find time this summer where it's local. Because, again, she'll be like mid-Ohio. Like they travel, I guess, because, again, how many hurling teams are there in here? But she'll bring her stick in because she'll use our indoor facility to practice. And next thing you know, we're in the office with a tennis ball just trying to be hurlers and just having a good time. But I'm obsessed with it. I think it's a cool sport. It's like lacrosse, rugby, somehow baseball gets into the mix. Yeah. It's absolutely awesome. It's so cool to watch.
Yeah, I only bring it up because I agree with you. So my dad and I on that trip went to go see a hurling match, and it was just so interesting to me. I was like, if I was the strength coach for this team, like how would I train them? Because like you said, it's a mix of so many different sports that we know, and obviously conditioning is a huge aspect of it. There's a lot of contact, and so there has to be a muscle mass aspect too. So like
with no padding, by the way,
with no padding. I mean,
so like
seriously,
you have to have some muscle on you to take those hits.
Yeah, and the best part is like these guys are just like accountants. Like they do it, they're completely amateur. There's like a 35-year-old guy going against a 21-year-old just getting absolutely drilled, and he gets right back up and drills him. So I thought it was fantastic. I highly support it, and it sounds like we're starting a partnership here. So eventually one day we'll both move to Ireland and we'll start up our strength and conditioning facility together.
We'll figure it out. I'll keep contacts with Alex and make sure that we have a connect on the other side of the ocean, and I'll have to make sure we got an easy way in.
Perfect. That's all I'm asking for. So I appreciate it. Well, okay. I did allude to this earlier, but I do have to ask you, I think a lot of our listeners are a little bit of the younger listeners, where they didn't necessarily have to be in the strength and conditioning space during COVID. On top of that, you were in a director role, which obviously a lot of the rules and regulations and the administrative piece comes down to you. Can you just walk me through that experience, having to handle COVID? I mean, what were the issues that you faced? What were some of the solutions that you came up with as well?
I mean, learn by fire, right? I feel like every day I was walking into a burning building and it was just like, okay, how do we still function? How do we get training done? I mean, the best example was like we had a football team. I think the roster was like 107, 105. We trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think we might have started, we'll say 5:30, plus or minus half an hour, whichever way you want to go. 10 kids per room. Temperature checks before they came in. I think it was like weekly or bi-weekly COVID testing at that time. And it was me and a part-time uncertified assistant. So trying to figure out, like, I don't even care about programming, X's and O's and all that. Like trying to keep football dudes, like, all right, keep your mask up. Coach, I can't breathe. All right, pull your mask. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're trying to follow these guidelines and rules because that's what we're told is like how we're going to keep us safe, keep us moving in the right direction. So whenever a season does come, we're as prepared as we can to be. But like, I only had X amount of dumbbells. So now like the weight room was like rack, elevated platform in the center, right? And we only had 5 elevated platforms. And there was no way they were 6 feet or whatever it was apart. So Olympic lifting was out of the question. Basically, each kid had their own squat rack. And then we divvied up the dumbbells. We're like, all right, we'll try to put maybe like smaller kids down here. The kids that are really strong, we'll move them to this side because it was like the 105s. And then, well, this kid needs a 105 or this kid got moved or it was one of the best things for me, I think, to be a director at that time because I learned how to problem solve so well. I learned how to handle a budget when there was no money. And again, the school I was at, we weren't flush in money to begin with. But again, now like ordering simple things. Hey, I need bands. I need hurdles. Just the little small things. Our nutrition station. How are we going to keep feeding these athletes, right? Because again, even if we're working out or if they're not working out, sleep, fueling them is going to be the best way for them to recover or even just keep going about their normal day. So there was just so many things that popped up of like, okay, so-and-so got sick. Now he's out of this group. This group is now moved to a different group. Well, this kid was over this kid's house and this kid tested. So now this whole pod is out. Okay, this whole pod's out for 2 weeks. What happens when they come back to 2 weeks and we're on week 6 of training and now they've had 2 weeks of nothing? How do you bring them back in? Do you put them in a transition period? Do you put them back on week 1? Well, now you put them back on week 1 for 2 days and half the group was in contact with someone else and now they're out for, you know what I'm saying? It was just like you were trying to do the best training you could, but in the worst situation you could because you didn't know who was going to be out, who was going to be in, what pod was going to be shut down, for how long. And then this whole big glooming thing of talking with the sports coaches. Again, I'm the director. I'm looking over football. Hey, are we going to be prepared to play if it comes to be here? And in my heart, I'm like, no, we're not going to be prepared to play. Like, we've got kids. I think there was like 2 kids. Like, I think they missed like 8 weeks of summer training because as soon as they got cleared, they then hung out with someone else who got positive and then they were out again. So it was like, how can we even train these kids? But again, trying to put looking at the glass half full instead of half empty, man. As a director, man, again, problem solving, communicating, learning how to coach. I mean, we had 12 hours of football. So now you're running the same program over and over and over, maybe with small variations. You just got really good at coaching, verbally coaching, because again, I didn't want to be super close to the kids. It was early on. I didn't know what was going to happen to you if you caught it, didn't caught it. And somehow I made it through the entire first 2 years of never catching it. So don't know how I managed that
Impressive.
one at all. But no, just like a lot of good came out of it, looking at it back now of like how I coach, how I communicate, how I problem solve. But again, it was just a crazy time, especially trying to be thrown in a leadership role when I didn't have a staff at the time. I think when I got hired that we had like 5 people at A&T. That was our staff. And it was just one after another, took a job, left, quit. And it was just me and a part-time who was uncertified that I couldn't even leave. All right, you're going to coach the tennis team. I'm going to get out of here an hour early. It was like, no, I have to still be in the building legally for you to coach them. So just interesting. Really learned how to survive on little food, little sleep, a lot of caffeine. Like really proved who I was and how much did I really love this profession.
Yeah, because I think back to my time of handling COVID. I was finishing up my part-time role at Tennessee. Just got my master's degree, and then for me, like the challenge that I had to come up with, and one of the nice, again, the glass half full aspect is how do you train entire teams when they can't even come in the facility? Because that was how it initially started, and so they can't come in the facility whatsoever. So now I've got a full Rolodex of different body weight workouts and different things that people can do at home. So now it's really nice that I could keep that. But then I started my first full-time job at Texas Tech. And so this is the first time I'm running a room, legitimately with a full-time team that, I'm getting paid a full-time salary and benefits to be there. And it's figuring out, okay, 1, how do I develop a culture? Because I don't even know how to do that as a strength coach quite yet. And then 2, how do I make sure we follow all these guidelines? Like you talk about bringing the dumbbells out to the racks. I remember doing that every single time. I remember, again, somebody touched this dumbbell. Now what do we got to fully sanitize it before somebody else touches it. Like it was a real pain. But again, I agree with you. Like it really taught me, like you said, how to problem solve. It really helped me figure out what are the things that I need to do in order to make sure we execute it according to these standards. And then once those restrictions or everything were lifted, it was way easier for me. So I was really happy that I could have it for my kind of first full-time role. Obviously, if I could go back and make that choice again, I probably would go with the easier route. Right. But at the end of the day, it did make me a better coach in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. I wish it never happened, but here we are. And hopefully we're better for it. We're better coaches. We're better men. We're just going to thrive through. And if something ever pops up again in our lifetime, it's like, nah, we've done it before. Let's just do it again.
Yeah, we'll have a leg up, on the younger coaches. We'll have known how it goes. So, one of the things you mentioned in your intro too was that you believe that you have one of the best staffs in the country. And, truly, I remember, what Coach Mock and Coach Duval have been posting, like you said, separately at Mississippi State, what they've done at Pittsburgh. I think it's been really interesting to see the high quality content that they've posted. But I'm just curious to you, what is the defining factors for you? What makes this one of the best staffs in the country? Because I agree with it, but I'm just curious to see from an insider, what your perspective is.
I can talk about how we are all specialists in different areas, especially now with bringing on Connor. I mean, the return to play aspect of our staff is going to go through the roof. My continuous knowledge for continuing education, I feel like there's not a single person in our office who's not like reading a book on a course and all that. Brenna with conditioning, GPS stuff, Taylor with his, like, we all have, like, we're all great strength coaches, and then we all have our little pockets of more expertise and all that. That's great. Coach Mock and Coach Duval, I'm going to tie him in because now he's leading the forefront, right? He's keeping this ship going. Did such an amazing job of the people they hired. When I tell interns, fellows all the time when we do interviews, right? Like, they ask, like, what separates you guys or what makes this a great spot? And I hate saying it because it's so cliche if you think about it in the business world and this and that. When I say, like, we are family, we are family. Any one of these people can call me at any time of the day or night with an issue or problem. Any of us will be the first one to respond. We have fun in the office, right? Like, I'll come in 6, 7 in the morning sometimes. And I was in today at 8. First thing I had to you was 10 o'clock, and I don't have any teams today. But I came in because, like, it's a fun environment, right? Whether we're joking around, we're playing table tennis on the plyo boxes, right? We got a impromptu basketball game because basketball camp's got a camp going on, and they leave for 12 at lunch. So now we're shooting hoops and all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a hard-working staff, really dedicated to trying to push the profession forward. But God, do we have a great time doing it? And I think that's the thing that separates us. And it also helps that I'm currently in our new office space of a new weight room we're moving in, which I think is one of my least favorite parts about this new room, because it's going to be me and Taylor sitting next to each other. Right now, we are all in one big rectangular office. Plus side, we're super close. You can turn around, talk to someone. We can have fun. Downside, most of us never get any work done because someone's free, grabbing one of the Nerf guns or doing something else, like, oh, let's go shoot hoops. Let's go in the wrestling room and toss the, like, you know what I'm saying? But, like, I think the environment of our old weight room, the staff that Steph and Aaron has built going forward, it's really the people that they put together that I think Mike Boyle says it all the time. I can make you smarter. I can't make you a better person. And we have amazing people through and through.
Yeah, like you said, it can be a cliche for people to say that, right? And it almost feels like you have to say it at this point because everybody says it during interviews, right? If we're interviewing for a role and somebody asks me, what makes Boone special, a lot of people will say the people, we're all a family, and different things like that. And, I think it truly makes a difference when that's the actual case, right? Like when it's somewhere that you actually enjoy coming in and working and you enjoy getting better. I remember, because of basketball, it's been tough, right? Because I'm almost always siloed. I'm always in a different weight room, and you're almost like the stepdad that visits, every once in a while. Like you come in, you're like, hey guys, and everybody's like, oh, Connor's here, cool. But like, you're not a part of that full legit group necessarily. I'm just saying that's kind of been my experience in the past. But I remember, when I was at Tennessee, we had a group of people who I stay in contact with almost every single day. John Fabrizius, multiple time guest on here. I think everybody who I worked with has been a guest on this show. But he and I read, we were just talking about in his episode that we're reading a book series together, and we text each other about it every single day. Like, awesome. But that's also, it's fantastic. I love it, but we're really good friends. But because we're good friends, I also know I can go up to him. I can ask him questions. I can help him problem solve. He can help me problem solve. And just because we have this, deep friendship, he ended up being one of my groomsmen, right? That, we're able to help each other get better as well too. How do you balance that, the aspect of having fun and continuing to work? Like you said, everybody's involved in a course. Everybody is, doing some form of continuing education. But, you still have to be pretty self-motivated to be able to get better in an environment where you're having fun too. How does that balance work?
I think it's also, again, it's the people, right? Like I am truly, again, I can only speak for myself, right? I've seen Taylor, I've seen Brent, I've seen it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can mention them, but I won't speak on them. First of all, before I start about that, every Wednesday we do continuing ed. So as a staff, we sit down. So whether we're going through a course together, we're looking at an article, someone is doing a presentation on a specific thing maybe they're working on with their teams, or we'll actually started last summer doing programming audits. So we will sit down in front of the entire staff and we go through our entire program. KPIs, force plate numbers, we go through everything, right? And that way you get feedback from outsiders of like, hey, yeah, this was good, but you think about this or this and that. And just a way for us to kind of like audit ourselves year by year with our teams. So staff continuing ed, every Wednesday. So that just allows us all coming together, right? We have a set time, a set date where like, hey, we are going to sit down and we are going to learn something. Could be from anything, as we've done multiple things over the years and all. I think personally for myself, it's probably a little bit of an imposter syndrome, feeling like there's something I don't know or I'm not good at. So I'm going to make sure I am doing everything in my power to get better at that, to provide the best for my athletes and myself. I like training myself. I want to get stronger. I want to get faster. Like, so if I can learn something that's going to help me to also help my athletes at the same time, like that's a win-win. And I think every year in one of our, what's the word I'm looking for? Not appraisals, goals we have for the year and all that. It's like always like, what's a long-term goal for you? And I always put, I want to be one of the best strength coaches I can be, which is an arbitrary goal. You can't measure it. You can't do anything. It's kind of this like forever path that I'm on, but it's something I'm working towards, right? I want to be the best I can at what it is. That might be in the micro of Pitt. That might be the macro of Pennsylvania. That might be the whole field. And again, there's no way to judge or do that. You're great. I'm great. Tommy down the street's great. We're all great. Our kids love us. They get results. They don't get hurt. You're a great strength coach. But I think this mindset of wanting to be the best also pushes me to want to keep learning, want to keep growing. And again, I'm sure, how many years have you been in the profession?
11 now.
11. Yeah. We could have the next 3 lifetimes in this profession and you wouldn't fully understand how the body works, how the mind works, how the central nervous system, like I'm saying, there's just so much we can learn that like you'll never know everything, which again pushes me to want to, all right, if I got one lifetime, let me try to be the best I can at this and learn as much as I can to provide the best I can for my athletes. Sorry, long-winded answer. I think a short question.
Come on, you as a podcast host, know that we love the long-winded answers because it allows us to, continue to ask questions. I love the programming audits that you mentioned because I feel like it's something that can really help drive everybody to be better with their programming, right? Ultimately, like you said, people get their eyes on it and they can see, okay, there's some potential thoughts that didn't even occur to you that I can help you with. And maybe we can do that to help get the program better. And it's a little bit of a selflessness aspect as well too, right? There's a little bit of a, let me get rid of my ego and let's go through my program and let's talk about it. Are those nerve-wracking at all? I mean, I would imagine I'd be pretty nervous to get up in front of my group of peers and go through everything that I do.
Again, I'm coming back to the shared space, the shared office, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no egos, right? Like if I ask a question or I bring something to someone else, I'm not trying to make fun of you or put you down. I legitimately, like, have you ever thought of this? Like, I'm all the time looking at, even when we're not doing program arts, Brenna sits behind me in the current space we're in now, and I'll turn around and be like, hey, this is the rep scheme I'm thinking about. This is the intensity I'm looking with. Obviously, I'm big on contraction and tempo stuff. Like, this is the tempo. Like, what are you thinking? And, like, I want her honest feedback. And if she says, hey, that is a terrible idea, which normally is the training I'm doing for myself, and she's tagged along on some programs I've written, and there's one we've done together that was the worst idea ever, but we tried it. But again, I don't think it's nerve-wracking at all, but I think that also just comes down to the staff we have and the relationship and the trust and the professionalism of like, hey, we all want to get better. Like, it's not anyone putting someone down or feeling like if I say something or I show Aaron this program, all of a sudden I'm in a hot seat to maybe not. It's not like that at all, which I think makes the whole process even better because now there is less of a fear. You're truly just trying to improve and get better.
Yeah, it's definitely the underlying relationship, right? Like you said, you know that this person cares about you, so they just want to help you get better, which I can see would really be exciting, right? Because then you can make sure you have the best program for your athletes. I think everybody just wants to do the best by their athletes possible. Nobody wants to go out there and say, let me put something together bad, or something that I think is really good, but I'm not going to have anybody else check it because I'm nervous about what other people could say too. So again, with that relationship piece, that's obviously huge. This is a question I get a lot from younger strength coaches. So I'm curious to see how you would answer it. They kind of ask me all the time about how do you go about continuing education? These are, typically these are GAs or people who just graduated from grad school. And they're curious about, what your personal approach is to continuing education, how you continue to grow as a coach. How would you answer that question if a GA or a young coach asked you that?
I would say, first off, you have to take a self-audit. What are you very bad at? If you're like, hey, I really don't know how to get kids faster. I don't understand sprinting. Okay, well, that's a good step. Now maybe we're going down to sprinting. And that might be simple as it's always going to come down to budget, right? If the amount of money I've spent this last year on continuing ed is disgusting. And my wife's like, why can't we afford this? And I'm like, well, I just spent $5,000 this year on continuing ed. So it's probably, I'm probably a bad example for this, because I will dump extreme amounts of money on continuing ed, because I look at it one or two ways. I'm either going to invest time or I'm going to invest money. One of them is going to help me. One of them is going to not. So I'll do whatever I can. But hey, it might be a book. Cool. You're going to get a $15 book on Amazon used, and that's where you're going to start, right? From there, maybe it's finding, again, social media is a double-edged sword. It's great, it's awful, but like you can find anyone on there, right? You can find the Altus crew, you can find Spellman, whoever you want to think about for speed, and now you get an inside look at what they do. There's also a great thing called a messenger, and you can message them. They probably also have a link to their website where there's more. Like I'm saying, it's just finding what you're not great at and then going into it. And one thing I try to tell our interns, because I'm currently running our internship program, is invest in people. Books are great. Courses are awesome. That you're going to get a head start. You're going to get a good foundation. In the last 3 years, I feel like I have grown most as a coach because I've invested in people to mentor me and help me along the way. And whether that's doing site visits, that's doing online cohorts, that's doing phone calls, it's been the best, right? It saved me years of time versus, I probably could have learned it in a book, but how many books have you read? And afterwards, you've got 17 questions on a topic and you're like, well, who do I ask this to? Having a mentor now allows you to then ask those questions as you're going through. So I'm a big believer in like finding people that either are doing what you believe in or have a point of view that's the same as you, and trying to reach out to them. Do they do consult calls? Do they do site visits? Do they offer anything that can help you get in? Go intern for them. If you have a summer free, go intern. That's the best way to learn, because now you're going to be hands-on in the mix, learning and doing at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic advice. And, it's funny. I think, again, everybody will almost say, the older coaches I speak with almost always say it's going to be finding people to speak with that is going to be the best thing. Right. And the advice I almost always give too is, on top of that, have you actually really sat down and talked in depth with the coaches you work with? Have you actually really gone and asked them about the things that that they specialize in? Because like you mentioned at Pitt, there's coaches who, everybody has a great general knowledge base, but then they specialize in certain things. And so why don't you speak to the coach about what their specialization is? And why don't you really learn as much as you can from there? This stems for me from when I was at Texas Tech. I was with football, for a majority of my career at that point. And I thought conditioning was, half gassers. And so I had no clue. And then we were really strong, but we were out of shape. And so from a conditioning aspect, I had to go speak with Katie Munger. And so we sat down and we talked a lot about different conditioning. And we really spent a lot of time to where it was something I had anxiety about previously. Like you said, with the self-audit, I knew I was really not good at it. And then to the point where now I feel really confident in speaking about it and talking about what our process is and why we do the things that we do, just because of Katie, right? And so it's funny because it's almost like people want to reach out, even further out. And it's like, well, why don't you talk to the people immediately first, because they're going to be willing to help you and they're going to give you some really good advice too.
No, absolutely. Like I said, once Connor steps foot in the office, I guarantee you I have a 30-minute sit down with him every week on return to play stuff. And he's going to hate me by the time we're done, but I'm going to make sure I get as much out of him as I can, because he's in-house. Like, we're together. Like, why wouldn't you use people around you to elevate yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Connor Shep is also another former podcast guest as well too. So
can't think of a podcast he probably hasn't been on at this point.
Yeah. I think he's a hot commodity. I think people want to make sure they talk to him. So you mentioned social media, right? You kind of mentioned the double-edged sword aspect of it, which I think a lot of people are aware of at this point. I posted on social media in the past. It's brought a lot of positive work, into my life. One of the things it led to is being able to host this podcast, which is something that I am very passionate about and I truly enjoy. You're obviously a very consistent social media poster. I think you post really high quality content as well too. What has posting on social media done for you and for your career?
Oh God, what has it done for my career? I don't know, because like I got to Pitt without it, right? Like if you look at all my stops beforehand, you scroll back. I think when you sent me the questions, I like scroll back to see like what was the first thing I posted strength and conditioning wise, and I had to scroll a ways back, because you said I am a heavy poster now. But like I got to where I wanted to be. Like I got to a P4 job without that, right? It was all based off of just resume, hard work, people around me, good networks. But I think honestly, what it's helped me in my career is one, network, right? Like it's allowed me to now people like you are reaching out to me to want to have conversations with, right? Coaches are seeing whether it's my full on templates, like if when you see one of my workout templates on, that is what we did. And if you zoom in hard enough, there's probably 3 or 4 things spelled wrong in it. There's probably something like that is the template I send my kids that we use. Allowed coaches to ask questions, right? It also allowed me, I think, when I put stuff out, if it is more of an in-depth post or it is of my workout and within the captions trying to explain, I have to really know what I'm doing and what I'm trying to get a point to get it through, because I'm not a great typer. I'm a bad texter. I spell things wrong. I'm very much more of a face-to-face communicator is what I like to do, but also I don't like putting my voice on Instagram because I hate listening back to it. So there's another side weird thing there. But again, it's just made me make sure, like, all right, if I'm doing my whiteboard sessions and I'm talking about something, is this the right information? If I'm explaining a workout or a style of training I'm doing, do I truly know it enough to have someone on the other side read it? And maybe it's a better coach than me, which there's plenty of them out there, be like, you are completely wrong. This is not how this works. And now they're just firing back on me in the comments. So really, it's just allowed me another way of like learning, double checking myself to make sure I truly know what I'm doing with my athletes and then sharing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's certainly a benefit that I've seen as well too, where if you post content, you've got to know it, right? You don't truly know it until you can teach it, which is obviously a mantra for a lot of us as coaches. But it's funny when you put something out into the strength and conditioning universe, you'll get a lot of opinions, right? Because it's the most gray profession of all time. Nothing's black and white. But then on top of that too, like I've gotten feedback before where it's really made me look at my processes. It's made me look at what I do. And I think it's made me better as a coach too. So it's almost to me like a program audit, right? But from a whole universe perspective. And then you get to make sure that you're really on top of your game. I love that you say, you know, you have a realistic version of it too, right? Because for social media, it's done a lot of really positive things for me. For a lot of people who post, you know, I've just been fortunate. I got lucky, you know, with kind of how certain things fell, you know, into my path. But I like that you mentioned that, you know, it's really something that's just kind of a tool to help me improve as a coach. But your success and getting to where you want to be was allowed to you by your hard work, right? It didn't it didn't get you the job at Pitt because you're this elite social media poster, but it's helped you improve as a coach, which is the realistic aspect for a lot of strength coaches who could go through and post. And now that I played that back in my head, I sound like such a braggart. I was going to have another word for that, but I don't
you're
cuss,
good.
but it's realistic, you know, and it's something where, you know, again, it could just help you be a better coach. I'm curious too, like, what do you get out of doing the podcast? Like, what do you enjoy about the podcast? And do you feel like you get that same process of getting better that you do as social media as the podcast?
So I guess the Talking Pitt podcast was an accident. It was supposed to be Brenna McDonald, and then her and Steph were supposed to co-host it. And I happened to run a podcast prior to getting to Pitt. I had Coach Mock on back, I think within like her first year at Mississippi State. And I literally was just Googling strength coaches, typed in whatever, went to Mississippi State. I was like, she looks nice. I'll see if she wants to come on the podcast. And she came on. So I was more on like the back end, like helping edit, helping what host service do we use? How do we get it on Apple? How do we get it on Spotify? Like more so the back engineering of it. And then one day it just happened to be where Brenna was busy. Steph was busy. Someone needed to host it. I did it. And then it just kind of hosted another one. Coach Mock was in the middle of volleyball, so really didn't have the time for it. We came back to a staff meeting after Christmas break. I was like, cool, you ready to go back to hosting the podcast? She's like, no, you're doing great. Keep it up. And it just then became my thing. Again, like anything else, right? Like you're talking to coaches, right? Like I'm reaching out to people who have no idea who I am, just like you do. And now we're trying to have a conversation that's not awkward. I'm not maybe talking about or things that are going to enrage someone. And I basically got to find a way for them to like me so that way the listener enjoys it, feels like it's a conversation back and forth with old friends, with someone I literally maybe had a 3-minute blurb with before we hit record and went with it. So I think being able to communicate, being able to find ways to get the most out of your guests, make them feel comfortable, which again then ties back to the weight room. I'm going to have a bunch of freshmen coming in who have never been in a weight room before. Some of them may have never lifted before. How do I get the most out of them? How do I make this a safe space? How do I make them do something that, let's face it, when I have you do 2-minute long duration ISOs in a split squat position, there's nothing fun about that. But how can I relay that information to make sure that they're getting the most out of it and doing what I need them to do, but not in a dictatorship way where it's my way or the highway. So again, all about communicating, all about how do you present yourself, how do you speak, and kind of build this relationship.
Yeah. So you had experience. You hosted your own podcast before that first.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I was a GA. I remember because I was driving in for something and someone posted new episode Cal Dietz. And again, this was like a first year GA, just finished riding triphasic. I thought it was the be all end all of everything. Triphasic's great. I'm not saying it's not. But again, like I was in that point in my career, right? And I listened to the episode and I was like, it's the same 4 stories. It's the girl who did RPR and then she did the assault bike and her resting heart rate went down 10. And again, great information. I'm not hating on Cal in any way, shape, and form, but like the more I was listening, really diving in the podcast and all these guests were coming on and he's on this show, she's on that show. I was like, it's the same stuff, but it was never the conversations that like we would have in the office. It wasn't the conversations we'd have at conference, right? So I was like, you know what? Let me start my own podcast. And I had a bunch of guests on and I set it up to where every 3 to 4 guests basically were asked the same question. So then you had different perspectives on it. How do you handle upper admin? How do you handle low pay in the field? It was more so, again, the conversations that we would have at the CSCCA or you have with your intern, like, hey, you sure you want to get in this profession? You're going to work for almost no money for the first couple of years, move around a lot, and then hopefully land a job that you can live off your salary and you like. But again, it was never like that. So I started doing it and I don't know how many, I think 25, 30 episodes I did. And then like everything else, it fizzled out. COVID happened, moved jobs, and kind of just ended.
Yeah, it just happens, No, I don't blame it whatsoever. Yeah, I love that you're asking the questions about kind of the tougher topics, right? That, people feel like those conversations happen behind closed doors. Obviously hosting this podcast, like we've had a lot of conversations about low pay. We've had a lot of conversations about mental health for coaches and how to, kind of keep your confidence, how to handle all the different adversities that come with it. And it's interesting because I remember feeling a little bit nervous at first to ask questions like that because I was, again, this is something that's going out to the public, right? I don't have problems asking those questions in person because, it's a conversation between us two. But when the conversation is recorded and everybody can listen to it and access it at any time that they want to, as the host, I felt a little nervous to ask those questions. But what I found was so many people are willing to talk about it because a lot of people want to see a change within the profession, and you can't see a change without talking about it.
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more on that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious too. So you run the internship program at Pitt currently, correct?
Just for the summer.
Just for the summer.
Just for the summer. Since
right.
Coach Seg left us to Florida State, someone needed to pick it up before we hired in, which is Connor now, but that position technically takes over the internship. And Brenna's got boat soccer. So basically after summer 2, her season just basically picks up and it's crazy. Taylor's a dad of a 3-year-old. Aaron has volleyball now. So I'm kind of the one that was like, I don't really got much going on this summer. So I'll take it over for the summer.
Okay, so it's just for the summer. That's exciting. So what has your process been for the summer? Because obviously summer internships are some of the most beneficial because the students have a lot of time to be there. There's typically not a lot of classes. What has your process been? How have you approached it for this summer?
So Brenna did a really good job because she originally had it before Steph left and we had the little change of positions and whatnot. She did an awesome job with like first 2 weeks of onboarding, teaching cleans, back squats, like our standard of movement. We do a programming project that basically they build out a whole 15-week off-season program throughout it, which is great for them now for a resume, going for a GA. They have something of like their thoughts of how they would program that's been audited, looked at by full-timers. So that way they're not doing 10 by 10 for 15 exercises for the first week of training.
Yeah.
But I basically set it up to where we meet once a day for at least an hour. And if you know anything about me, I am a awful at time management. I'm always going to over deliver. So sometimes that's an hour and a half. Sometimes I think we've gone close to 2 hours. But every week we set something up. So Tuesday, we skip Monday. Tuesday, usually it's something like, okay, we're going to talk about accessory stuff today because that's going to be the next piece due in a week for your programming project. Then we'll dive into some leadership stuff. Then we'll dive into maybe nuances of programming that I'm not going to have them use for their programming project, but I want them to get an understanding of. Then there might be a tech talk. We might do something with our sports scientists. Every couple of weeks, we'll throw a Friday on roundtable. So basically, all the full timers will be there, and they come for an hour, open questions. Sometimes it's literally a free for all. Sometimes it's like, hey, bring questions around speed, conditioning, agility. What questions do you have? And you'll get different perspectives of it. And this was the first time we did it. About 2 weeks ago, our staff was just two of them were on vacation. Someone was doing something else, so I brought an outsider in, a buddy of mine, Michael Tucker at Liberty, and I really liked the fact that you could talk to the coaches, but now you also were getting a networking opportunity speaking to another coach. So in another 2 weeks, we're going to do it again, and I'm going to reach out to two other friends and have them Zoom in. Because again, I just think it's awesome. Like, you see how I'm programming, you see how I'm coaching. You're already getting that hand experience. But what is someone you have no idea doing? What's their thoughts around conditioning? So this is kind of something we do. Try to get it done 2 or 3 times throughout the time they're here. And then also every other week we'll do a coaching drill, which I think this is something Brenna brought in from her time at Kentucky. Start out very simple. You're the coach. You got to stand behind this line far away to basically only be allowed to coach with your voice. You got to take 3 of the full timers through a set of cleans and a set of back squats. The room is yours. How do you go about it? And we usually set it off with like medium level of music, not a lot going on, one station, and every time they do it, the ante gets up. Music gets louder. More exercises get thrown at you. Okay, now we're doing a tri-set where we're going lat pull down, something else. So now there's more flow to the room. How do you coach that? So basically trying to build them throughout the year to where now basically they're in a situation, they're coaching a full group. How do you go about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I really like the full-fledged aspect of having an internship, right?
Mhm.
Of, okay, these are legitimate. Here's our times where we're going to meet. Here are things that we're going to do. And here are different drills and different perspectives that you're going to see from all these coaches. Because I remember, again, with basketball, I kind of just take on 1 or 2 interns at a time. I have them come work with me. And when I first started out, I didn't really have set meeting points. I would kind of just say, okay, because the schedule's busy, it's kind of crazy. It changes a lot. We'll just talk about this when we can get to it. And obviously those things fell through the cracks, right? And, it really took, from a self-audit standpoint, it took some reflecting to understand I'm really hurting these people, because they're coming here to work for free. And while, they can have an okay or good internship experience, how can you actually make it elite? And how can you make it something where when they leave, they can be really high level coaches? And that realization came to me, honestly, when, I had an intern apply for another position. They did a reference call, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I just don't think this person's really ready for that. And it was something where I felt like in that specific situation, if I had had a more organized program, or if I had really spent more time diving in on what their specific weaknesses were, they would have been ready for it. So it was a tough reflection for me, but I love hearing out the full-fledged process, having consistent meetings, doing these things on a regular basis, because that's how people really get better. And it's clear why, Pitt is really known as one of the best places to go as a young coach. I remember when Nico said he had the opportunity to go to Pitt, I was like, you've got to go, because this is a place where you're going to get better as a coach, right? And I didn't even really know anybody personally on staff. Now I know you, right? But at the same time, like, I just knew it had a reputation of being successful, and it's really good for young coaches to go there and get better. And I appreciate hearing the process, because it's clear to see why.
Yeah, and I wish it was all that, but I know myself, if I just freestyled it, it would be 3 weeks. And I'm like, I haven't talked to them about anything. So at least scheduling it week by week, it's harder for me not to have to move things. I know if someone wants to do a Zoom, if I'm on a podcast, if I'm recording a podcast, all right, I know at X amount of day I'm working with, okay, we got to do another time. So for me, it just helps me keep more organized. It's selfishly for me. It's not for them. It's so that I stay organized.
Of course, obviously. Yeah. Well, everything's for us at the end of the day. So
100%.
Yeah. Well, Devin, thank you so much, man. Seriously, it's been great to get to know you better. It's been great to hear about your different processes. Again, I love hosting this podcast because I feel like it makes me better. And I feel like you made me better today as a coach too, because I can really reflect on a lot of things that were important during this episode. So I really appreciate it. If somebody, now this is a chance to shout it out. If somebody wants to listen to Talking Pitt or follow your social media, would be the best way to do so.
Talking Pitt is on Spotify, Apple, Google. I think any option I could have tagged to put it up, it's on there and all that. Episodes are normally, and I say normally because I'm a human being and things happen, every other week and all that. I'm in the process of uploading one for this Friday, which is going to be a fun episode because the tables are turned again. Someone is actually interviewing me on the Talking Pitt episode and all. So we did something a little bit different. So special guest for that one. I think it's going to be a good episode. You want to follow me on social media? I think it's Devin_SNC coach. I post a lot of training stuff, a lot of my own training, a lot of my team's training, workout cards. I've got a whole whiteboard series I'm doing now, and that's basically my not stance and not what's the word I'm looking for? Not fight against all the AI generated infographics people are putting up. So I just wanted to do something that was different, but also helping me out and helping people out. So, and as a strength coach, who doesn't like writing on whiteboards? I love whiteboards as a strength coach. So
yes.
it's perfect. But yeah, follow me on there. Shoot me a DM. I'll get back to you eventually. I'll reach out. Like I talked about Keith earlier in this podcast, and as much great things as he taught me X's and O's and things like that, the one thing that sticks with me the most is he always said, pay it forward. So kind of giving him a little bit of a legacy and to live on. I try to keep that in the forefront. If anyone DMs me, wants to hop on a phone call, they're free. I don't charge you for them and all that. I probably should at some point, but any coach that I can help out along the way, I'm more than willing to.
Wow, well, that's awesome, man. And I do highly recommend for the listeners to go check out the whiteboard series because I really enjoyed it since you've been posting it.
Good. I'm glad people are liking them. I'm not sure if they hit or not, and I do apologize for my awful handwriting. It's also helping me write neater, so I'm trying that as a.
It makes it more authentic to me.
Okay.
Because, at the end of the day, I don't know if I trust you as much if you spent too much time worrying about the handwriting versus what the content is. So yeah, I like it.
There's a certain point I'm like trying to write something and I'm like, screw it. It's just going to be what it's going to be.
Which is fine by me. Again, more authenticity. So, well, Devin, thank you so much, man. It's been really great to have you on.
Thank you, Connor, man. Always a pleasure. Let me know if you want to do it again.
Absolutely.